Good morning, everyone. This is Ron, Sunday morning. We'll go ahead and get started today. We spoke yesterday, took a second look, or maybe I said a third look at the verses that Charles had spoke to us about in Luke 12, and we looked at those again and discussed them and brought a little clarity to them, and that opened us up to other discussions. So what we're looking at this morning, Pastor has something he wants to address with us. But first, I want to make sure and make some space for your questions if you have anything about what was discussed the last two sessions. Any questions and or comments on what we already talked about? Okay. We'll do this for me. If you have any other questions on any other topic, if you don't mind, I'll get you to hold them maybe till the end, and we look at it then, or maybe we'll table it for tomorrow if it's not pressing. If it's something pressing, please let me know that if it's something we need to talk about today or right now. Okay. So we'll hold our questions then for right now, and I'll turn it over to Pastor and let him get us started.
You're on mute, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to talk about something that's been in the news, but it's having an apparent adverse effect according to the talking heads, but in reality, I don't believe it. But I wanted to talk about it because I woke up with it on my mind this morning and I felt very strongly about it. This is what I want to talk about is the role that the church has played in maintaining the indoctrination of black males to be guided by white males, to be influenced by white males, to the extent that they don't truly process what's happening. And I'm not trying to, I'm saying this unapologetically, okay? Because African males are more apt to follow in the footsteps or make an effort to follow in the footsteps of white men than black women are to follow in the footsteps of white women. And this has been presented for the last 2-3 weeks. What white males did, when Obama said what he said, they jumped on the bandwagon, saying that he was diminishing black males or playing them off for not understanding the political politics, period. And black males bought into that. Some of them did. And I want to ask Janice to please play the video, the audio from it that I sent to her. And from that, I want to engage a discussion. Okay?
Give me just a second.
Okay, thank you.
I have never been so offended in my life. She's bringing a man here who is Charlemagne, a false god, to a community that has 4,500 churches, all people of faith. We are extremely offended that she's bringing a podcaster here to talk to black men about politics. She brought a retired athlete to Flint who is failing, Magic Johnson, and she brought Oprah to Oakland County as if she understands the plight and the pain of people that look like me. We will not allow virtue signaling, or we will not allow identity politics. Black men are not political infants. We know exactly what's happening with the Democratic Party. We know that they've exploited us for over 6 decades. And we are saying, just like Moses said to Pharaoh, let my people go.
Did that come through okay?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Mhm.
I wanted that video played because this is has become a mantra among young Black males. And to say that you are not a political infant is defending what nobody said about you, which means that you really are. Why do I say that? Because to say that the Democrats has exploited us for the last 60 years or more, that is true. However, are you supporting Trump because the Republican Party has not, or that Trump has been kind to us, or that Trump has made open avenues for us to move beyond the second class status that has been assigned to us since we've been in this country? The attitude of this young man is the attitude of the Black church, the African church in this country. The African church pastors are dominated by males, and the only place that Black pastors, for the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, think a female should be, she should only lead in the missionary society or in the kitchen at the church. And Black males have been taught that they are the head of their household, and no one overrules them, and whatever they say goes. This is the root of men thinking that they could control their women with money also. This is beyond the pale. When we listened at what he said and understand the roots of it all. Would you mute your phone, please? 735 484-735. Would you mute your phone, please? Thank you. We have been in this state ever since Christianity was introduced to us, and it reminds me of what Nat Turner went through with the white preachers telling him what he could preach and what he couldn't preach. We have strived so hard to be Christians accepted by the white church until we have lost our sense of masculinity in regards to our female counterparts. And that, what I mean by that is we have sought to suppress the forward motion, forward movement of our women, just as white men have suppressed white women. We have bought into the lie that the man rules the household simply because Paul said that women are to learn from their husbands. This is a European concept that has no basis in truth nor reality. So the thing that also gets me is that you can buy into what you are being told by a group of white men who do not give a damn about you. And you will not listen to what is actually being said, meaning he talked about a virtual, Dawkins or something like that. but he's not hearing the dog whistles of Trump. And to stay home and not vote is a vote for Trump. And to vote for Trump is no different than staying at home. So the results of a Trump win puts that very young man in a greater danger than he's ever been in, because if we think that African men are going to be in a better, safer position because Trump is in the White House, you need to read the 2025 project and understand what the plans are for us as African men in particular and African women in general. The racism is so deep until the African women in Atlanta who have come together to help other African women start businesses has been sued by one of Trump's supporters, the same man who sued the colleges to end rather, what is that? Yeah, to end the, help me someone with the program that he in.
Affirmative action?
Yes, to end the guy who sued to end affirmative action. Affirmative action is the same person who's suing to stop Black women from using their own money to help finance other Black women who are seeking to start businesses. And the list goes on as to what is happening behind the scenes. But what Black males are not paying any attention to, seemingly, is that if Trump is elected, then the Black community in the cities will become concentration camps. The way he has talked about making sure that Black people stay in their place. For example, when George Floyd was killed, Trump wanted to send the military to the streets to arrest anyone who protested and to be rough with them, as he put it, which means that he didn't care whether they beat them or shoot them. So with that understanding, I think that it is very, very, very important that we deal with reality and address the fact that Black men, well, some Black men have been duped by the church, and the church has been duped by white men. Any questions or comments about that so far?
One of the things it puts me in the mind of Pastor, and I think Kathy mentioned something along these lines couple of weeks ago. The scripture that talks about we wrestle not against flesh and blood. That is what this says to me. We have focused so much on the European and you know, looking at this from a different perspective. And yeah, we have paid attention to the young Black male. We have, but I think this speaks loudly to us that what is in energy is in the air. It's just darkness and chaos, and so that's the first thing that came to my mind. The energy that we're looking at, and I think it's no different than some of the stuff we've already addressed, and addressing this, just putting in the macro and taking the rug off the top of it. So, but that's just what I wanted to say. That's just came to mind to me.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think the African male is being chauvinistic to the point where it is detrimental to the community and to us as a people. Kathy sent an article to the teachers yesterday that speaks to that very issue, with a man asking this white lady what makes her qualified to have a voice or even have a part in the conversation as a woman to talk about the plight of men. I I think that was a question that he should have pondered before we raised it, because the relationship between men and women in this country has always been unbalanced, with the female being treated as a piece of property as opposed to a person who should be respected. So I would like to see if there are other questions in regards to this.
Rick, this is
Yes.
Charles.
Mm-hmm.
I think white, well, I can see it. European put the black males in a box, and they want them to think what's in the box. All that they gave them is in that box. But I'm thinking the black people's been put like that for so long, they don't want to think for themselves. They always want to be European thinking for them, and they think everything is right no matter what they say. But you got some that's thinking outside the box, where you got the majority of them still in that box.
Thank you, Charles. I don't think the majority of black men are still in that box, but I do think a significant number of them are. And there is a gender, I'm sorry, a age division there. The older the black males are, the less they are to be in a box. However, when you look at that African preacher, especially the younger ones, they are living in that box. And if you think about during holidays, for example, there is an exchange of preachers and churches. But the only thing that white folk want black people to do when they come to their church is sing. They don't want them to preach. They don't want them to teach. I taught in a white church, and I preached in a white church, and they got rid of the preaching because he would not stop me from coming to that church. He kept inviting me to teach and to preach from his pulpit. And people, they left, and eventually he lost the church. So what does that say? African churches have never closed the door to anyone, but there are evangelical churches, white churches, who has always kept the door closed to people who look like me. Now, when it comes to the charismatic, they open the door. But they open the door because they know they can control you, and they are you are more susceptible to giving to a greater degree than you did in the church that you left. And you do not see the leadership in charismatic settings, the leadership are looking like us. The primary leadership in the charismatic settings are white men. And definitely in the evangelical church, where you got people like Tony Evans, who think that he is one of the primary leaders, but he leads only as far and as long as they allow him to. Carlton Pearson learned that the hard way when he made a statement that that those at Oral Roberts University and other charismatic ministers like Kenneth Copeland, they made a decision that he was no longer accepted into the fold because he said something that they did not agree with. And 6,000 people walked out of his church simply because white preachers said that they should, because of what he said that they disagreed with. Of course, Carlton Pearson has transitioned since then, but the point is the same. And I do believe that the reason I woke up with this morning is because it needed to be addressed in a manner that will put in the macro some sense of understanding the root of what we are dealing with when it comes to the African males. It also tells me that we are in a place where the universe is saying enough is enough. The manifestation of change is real. Also, it tells me that the energy of the European mindset is pushing back hard because it knows that its rulership over humanity is coming to an end or about to be manifested in a way that they will no longer be able to control the world. And they are they are putting out all the stops in order to make this a reality. And here we are sitting where we are in terms of waiting for the fifth to occur so that we can see the beginning of the manifestation of what should be and should have been for the last thousands of years. So I want to ask you about your thoughts about this. I want to ask you if there are any questions about this. And I want to also ask you to give your feedback as to how you are seeing this, especially the article that Kathy sent. I would like for her to address that in a few moments, if she will. So right now, questions or comments? What do you see in all of this?
Rev, this is FT.
Uh-huh.
It's like one thing, just to kind of add to what you were saying earlier. There seems to be, by the Caucasian side, is kind of an acknowledgement of history a little bit, where we had one division trying to erase it, but there seems to be an acknowledgement, at least of history. And it seems like people are sort of dipping their toe into the water to see if there's a proper way to acknowledge the injustice of the people of color. And even, Prince Charles came out and he sort of dipped his toe in the water, at least acknowledging some of the injustices that have happened, but no plan. And so I just kind of see that it's sort of a feeling out that seems to be going on. People are acknowledging what they've seen a little more out loud, but not fully committing to a solution or a way to move forward. So I do see there's a bit of a shift there going on.
Thank you. And I can acknowledge that. And the reason I say I can acknowledge that is because not so much that a shift is going on, as I think is already taking place. The shift, and the reason I say that is because when you look at the list of people who has come out to support or to endorse Kamala Harris in relationship to the attitudes that males, especially conservative males, have taken towards us, people of color, that is a bit different now. If you had told me that Dick Cheney was going to endorse Kamala Harris, I would have told you there is no way in hell that that's going to happen. I never would have believed that under any circumstances because of the history of the decisions that he's made and statements that he's made in the past. I never would have believed that. And there's others who I believe also. In addition to that, I do believe that the voices who are speaking out are some of the secret voters. They are saying that they support Trump, but secretly they are not going to cast that ballot. So thank you for bringing that up. As anyone else? Kathy, will you address that article that you sent, or that the message you sent to us?
I will. Good morning, everyone. I had sent a message on yesterday. I was watching a show that I rarely ever watch on MSNBC called The Katie Fang Show. And she just happened to show a clip of a young white woman who was doing a podcast. And I'm trying to think, let me look. The podcast is called Man Enough Podcast. And they had an African-American male host, and I didn't catch his name. And he was interviewing Liz Plank, who is a white female, and she is an MSNBC columnist. And he asked her this question: what makes you qualified to have a voice or to be a part of the conversation as a woman to talk about the plight of men? And her answer without hesitation was the same thing that makes you qualified to talk about white men. When you are oppressed, you know everything about the oppressor. You know things about the oppressor that they don't even know about themselves. Well, needless to say, her answer shocked him, and everyone at the table, there was another guy at the table with her, and they all were like, whoa, and they started looking at it differently, more objectively, and the host ended up saying, you know what, you're right. And I sent that to the teachers because it made me realize we've been saying all along that it's not us versus them. It's not feminine energy versus masculine energy, or a female versus a male, or black female versus black male. It's none of those things. And the point that she made, to me, it was really profound, because in just those two statements, she said other stuff, but those things were the most profound to me. She was able to, in two statements, summarize everything that we had been talking about, because she showed that it is not a us versus them in any way, but that we are on the same journey, having a similar plight. And all who have ever been oppressed are on the same side, because the oppressor has oppressed all of us. And as a result of that, we are qualified to have the conversation, not about male versus female, not in that sense. That's not even what we're looking at. But if we look at the bigger picture, which is what? We've all been oppressed by the oppressor, and we're changing things. Then how do we change things? We change those things together. And as she was able to bring that clarity to this gentleman, I mean, I don't know how long the podcast lasted, because Katie Fang only showed that one clip on her show, and then she had the girl herself there as the guest later in that show. But the point of the matter is, she made it very evident that when you step back and look at the big picture, you'll see it's not a black male versus a black female, and I can't vote for a black female. It's learning to not continue to support the oppressor who continues to oppress you. And when you can see it clearly from that standpoint, you can stand back and recognize that we are actually in the same fight together and on the same page, and not divided. And if we stop the divisive rhetoric and stop looking at it through the eye of the oppressor, we can see clearly what's going on and work together to change things. And I felt like that spoke volumes to what we are dealing with right now, especially even with this election. And that's why I sent that to the teachers. And so I just wanted to share that this morning. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Any questions or comments?
Well, maybe it has taken all that and all of these years for people to unite and be one. As you said, this came from a white one, Caucasian woman. Because in the past we have not been united. I know just black people. I mean, the women's movement or any other kind of movement in this country has not been united, because nobody has stood with the African. So maybe it's that time. Maybe it took all of this actions and all of these negative things happening to really and truly unite the country. So yeah, I agree with Kathy. It's a positive thing.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, my bad, Reverend Rich. You can go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Reverend Richard. Ron, based on what you stated, no one has ever stood with the African. I don't know how true that is. However, my question to you is, has the African ever stood with the African? I agree with everything that has been said, and not to take the antagonist approach. The reason why some African American males are buying into the hypocrisy of the European maneuver, such as Trump, number one, my opinion, if we start acknowledging the good that we're doing in our culture, I believe it can have some kind of degree of effect. Our culture buys into, if the African American male is doing good, he don't need a pat on the back. I think that's the biggest lie. If he's doing good, if he is improving, you need to acknowledge that. Same thing for the female. Just based on what ST stated, he said the word acknowledged 3 times. He stated that if people are not acknowledging the pain that we've been through, so in that, how can we expect people to acknowledge the pain we've been through when we don't even acknowledge the good that we do? And we can't pick and choose when acknowledge is good and when being acknowledged has no value. So I stand on the basis of, if anyone is doing good, I have to acknowledge that individual. If anyone has shown improvement from where they were, I have to acknowledge this. And it's not just in the church. These football coaches will come into an African American household and try and take over. So I agree with what's been said thus far. I just think a remedy to it is we have to start acknowledging each other. And acknowledging other people, it really works for me. I was on Two Notch Road this week, and it was thick like government cheese. And a young lady was trying to get out of cookout. I acknowledged her. Come on out. She waved her hand back to me, or they waved their hand back to me. So we can't pick and choose when you have to acknowledge something and when you don't have to acknowledge something. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Pastor.
I was simply going to say that the Caucasian lady, what I gathered from what she said, and I was going to say this before George spoke, is no different. And when she said that, the oppressor, and you know things about the oppressor that he doesn't know about himself, and that is because she's been in Egypt. The story of Moses being in Egypt, learned the ways of Pharaoh, so that they knew Pharaoh, but Pharaoh knew itself. That story that is talking about a spiritual truth. The African has been in the midst of the oppressor to the extent that he knows the oppressor better than the oppressor knows himself, because the oppressor does not pay him any attention whatsoever, because he thinks that he is too ignorant, or he thinks that he's too weak to rise up against him, and only to find out that it's not about the strength in a physical way or the weakness. It is about the determination in the spiritual way, the spiritual determination to not just free himself, but also to free the oppressor from the racist nature that he has embraced. That's what I was going to say. That's all. Go ahead, Ron.
I think about how long there's been a greater new faith and a foundation of faith, and what we have been pushing to accomplish. And I think about we talk about the ancestors all the time, and gaining strength and wisdom from them. If anybody if everybody on earth rather looks for acknowledgement or a pat on the back, whatever gets done, nothing gets done. So you do what you do, and maybe your pat on the back is on the other side. Especially you live it every day as parents, as teachers. You don't always get recognized for what you do. People don't always see what you do. They see the results of it. So even what we're doing now, addressing this issue, the pat on the back is the results of the spirituality that's being put out there. So I just want to address that, because that's not going to always be something that you recognize. The gratitude that you get is the privilege of doing it sometimes. So just want to say that. Thank you.
Ron, in addition to that, when I think about that, I wonder where we would be if all of the people during the civil rights era have been waiting for a pat on the back. There are people who get total credit for things that they didn't do. I know very well how students from Federal City College, students from Federal City went to Howard, pressured them to put a health clinic in Mississippi. And there were those who didn't see the value in it. They did it, but we didn't get a pat on the back. Weren't even looking for one. I remember how we risked our lives registering people to vote, and others got recognition for what they did simply because of who they were connected to or because of what school they attended. And it didn't matter to us. You've heard me say this before. I'm not a king, I'm a kingmaker. And I'm not looking for a pat on the back. I'm looking for the results that king can give when I make him a king. Does that make sense? And if I need to explain that further, I will.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, Reb, this ain't about acknowledgement or anything. You said something many moons ago about the young lady that's married to the King of England or the Prince of England, and you said something that every time she is shown in Time magazine, she has she looks more European. And that's one of the things I've noticed about Ms. Harris is that every time I see her, she looks more like the white woman. So that's just what I've noticed. I've never seen her look like an African American woman. Now she did say this. Now she said she liked Tupac. Now she said that. Now, but that's just one of the things I was just looking at. how the media can, just do some things. I'm just looking at that. That's all. Thank you.
How many Africans who don't look African? I remember reading an article or listening to a video not long ago where this white dude, this black dude rather, said that white people don't care anything about the African. And he said they don't even think about us at all. And he said, how do I know that? Because they told me. He was a man who could pass for white. And he sat in their midst and listened at how they talked about us. So it's not about how you look, it's about your attitude. And you know as well as anyone on this phone knows, if they care to admit it, that we have been, our women have been raped for so many years until we can't even count them. And you know as well as we know, all of us know, that some of us have been born from the womb of a woman who is just as dark as the Betadine, but they birth children who look like they're white. The difference is that an African womb can birth a child that's genetic, that outward appearance is different, but genetically the same. So it's not about what the karma looks like, because I've got my feel of that. This is one of the things that Donald Trump says. She just became black. That's sickening to me. That does not matter in the scheme of things. What matters is the policies. What matters is what is she going to do when she gets in office. And regardless of what she does when she gets in office, it's a heck of a lot different in terms of fostering the betterment of humanity than what Donald Trump would do. Because his desire, and he has stated this, is to enrich those who are already rich and to diminish those who don't look like him. And if you think for a moment that the deportation of Hispanic people is going to end with that, you got another thought coming. And if you think he won't do that, then look at what Eisenhower did. So there is the only difference that I see between the two that is important to me anyway, is that one is representing the thoughts, the opinions, and desire to implement the actions of those who founded this country. And the other one is seeking to move beyond this scheme of race, move beyond this social construct that we call race, move beyond the redlining, as opposed to getting rid of every department in government that aids people of color. That's the only two the things that I see. And the other thing is that no one really challenges Donald Trump. They challenge Kamala. Donald Trump said that he wants to return to the attitude of 1789. What happened in 1789? We were enslaved. Women had no rights whatsoever. They were simply property. And And no one challenges that. And I don't think that Africans give much thought to that. That actually means, would you mute your phone, please? 353. We have not given much credence to that, thought to that rather. We've not challenged that, and certainly the talking heads have not challenged that. No one has asked him about that. Do I think they would get a clear answer? No, but no one is asking him about it. No one has asked Vance about it. But all the challenges are to Kamala Harris. And you say, well, MSNBC is supporting her, or CNN is supporting her, whatever, whomever is supporting her. There is a racist psyche that exists in this country. And that psyche of racism that exists in this country is seen when those who are talking heads, these quote unquote journalists, are talking about her. People don't know her, is what they say. People don't know what her policies are, is what they say. But they do not talk about the lack of policy of Donald Trump. She makes a mistake or she misspeaks, and they harp on that. But they do not talk about the senility of Donald Trump. They don't do that, and that is a deep-seated sense of racism and fear, in that women, especially white women, have been taught that you are not supposed to challenge your man, or you're not supposed to challenge a man. And that is why I do believe that Donald Trump does not get the challenges that she gets. Now, why do I mention this? I mention this because we are talking about the founding of this country versus the road that leads us to democracy in this country. And the only way that we can see these things take place is for us to begin to clear up the indoctrinations of what we call it system of education. And because the reason that these women, who primarily are white women, who are acquiescing to Donald Trump and challenging Kamala Harris, the reason is because that's all they know. And someone needs to call them on that. And if I had opportunity, I would definitely call them on that. So anyway, I'm done. Any questions or comments? And I don't want to belabor the point, but I do believe that we have to make sure that this type of challenge and clarity is placed in the macro for the express purpose of being infused into the mindset of those who desire to think differently than what they have been indoctrinated to think. Right.
Thank you. Questions or comments, anybody?
I
Ron,
have a comment.
oh, go ahead, Charles.
Okay, you go ahead.
No, I have something I want to read, so you go ahead and say yours.
Mine was on what you were talking about, Kathy, and what came to me when you was talking, it was about when Jesus, I don't know if he was eating or not, but this young girl is in the midst of him, and I guess you want to get what he has, and he told the young girl, you can't have this right here for my children. You cannot have it. I can't give what to the children to dogs. And she answered him and said, even the dogs eat the crumbs. That's when you were talking about that incident that you had saw on TV, and that's what I pull off from that right there.
Mm.
Bye, baby.
That's all.
I like that, Charles. I see that too. I like it. I'll let someone else comment because I'm going a little bit in a different direction.
I guess the question, make sure everyone understood what Charles was saying. Is there anyone who did not catch what Charles was saying? Okay.
I'm sorry, Pastor, I couldn't get to my phone in time, but can someone elaborate on that, please? Thank
He
you.
was simply saying that one of the statements that's attributed to the entity called Jesus is that he said that he could not feed give the food of Israel to the Gentiles. And she said, even a dog eat the crumbs that falls from the table. And what was actually being said is that this understanding is for everyone, regardless of their status in your eyes, because all of us are humans. Does that make sense, Evan?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the clarity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, Pastor and teachers, everybody. I'm listening. I heard what George said earlier about acknowledgement and getting the acknowledgement. And I have a question along those lines, but I want to tie it to something that I'm reading. George, Levon, and Ron had told me about a book called The Spirit of Intimacy, and it's the ancient African teachings and the ways of relationships. And I'm sure I'm not going to say her name right, but it's Sobonfu Somé, who wrote the book. And in one chapter, she talks about the embrace of community. And this chapter is really resonating with me because it's opening me up spiritually, understanding a sense of community, not just physical community, but spiritual community. And if you'll allow me, I want to read a passage and then ask what are the thoughts on that? Is that addressing what George said earlier? And it says, community is the spirit, the guiding light of the tribe. And she is of the, let me find out which tribe she is of. And George, if y'all are on, help me, the Gara tribe. She says, community is the spirit, the guiding light of the tribe, whereby people come together in order to fulfill a specific purpose, to help others fulfill their purpose, and to take care of one another. The goal of community is to make sure that each member of the community is heard and is properly giving the gifts he has brought into this world. Without this giving, the community dies, and without the community, the individual is left without a place where he can contribute. The community is the grounding place where people come and share their gifts and receive from others. When you don't have community, you're not listened to. You don't have a place you can go to feel that you really belong. You don't have people to affirm you affirm who you are and to support you in bringing forward your gifts. This disempowers the psyche, making you vulnerable to consumerism and all the things that come along with it. Also, it leaves many people who have wonderful contributions to make holding back their gifts, not knowing where to put them. And without the unloading of our gifts, we experience a blockage inside, which affects us spiritually, mentally, and physically in many different ways. We are left without a home to go to when we need to be seen. Now, my question is based on what I'm hearing from that. It's the sense of community and the sense of belonging, and the sense of sharing of my gifts and acknowledging who I am is a thing that is coming from the inside out. It's not about an outward thing. It's all about an inward thing. And recognizing that spiritually we have that support even in one another, which is why I think we don't call ourselves just a church. We call ourselves family on this line. That's a physical outpouring of community. But there's a deeper community that's on the inside of us that is that spiritual community, if I'm seeing this correctly, that you don't grow weary in doing, and you feel good about acknowledging the fact internally that I've done the right thing according to what right is. And you have satisfaction in that, if I'm seeing that the right way. So I read all of that just to ask for clarity on community, if I'm saying it the right way, and how does that tie into what George asked earlier?
That
I'm
is,
done.
that's community. What you read is community. And if there are people on this phone, on this line, be it Zoom or phone, who grew up in a community, that's exactly what you experience. What am I saying? I grew up in a community, and that community was family. And there were people within that community who were not blood relatives. And we shared everything, and from discipline to the need, fulfilling the needs of others. And nobody in that community felt the need to get a pat on the back for what they did. They did it because it was the right thing to do. We washed Miss Effie's clothes when she was sick. We washed the clothes for her household and ironed them and took them back to her. And we were not looking for anybody in the community, nor Miss Effie, even though she said thank you. We didn't do it because of that. We did it in spite of that. That's what community is. And so I see that what you have just read, that's how we actually grew up in a community.
And she speaks to the fact that Western civilization has lost the sense of community, or maybe never even knew it. I'm not sure. But in all that we are talking about with the Black males and the just everything that's going on that we see playing out before us right now, is it safe to say that we have lost the sense of community, and what we are doing when we come together 3 times a week is establishing or reaffirming that sense of community, or rebuilding that sense of community, even if we didn't know it was missing?
Yes. Yes, we are. We are building community. Family. We have lost that sense of community. And when we look for individual acknowledgement, that is separation from the community. We are looking to be acknowledged for what I did, not what you did. When I do something, the whole community not only benefits if it's something positive, not only do they benefit, but also the whole community has participated in that, because I could not function without the support and the energy of that community. Make sense, Kathy?
It does. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'll wait.
No, I was just going to say, might I add too, that we talked about this recently. That's when that's what the 12th chapter Genesis supports. When they talk, leave your father's country, the nation community is the same principle. That is discussion, and the only other thing I want to add to that is, you notice the more education was taken away from us, we took it out of our homes ourselves, as far as looking at our history, and as we became ashamed of who we are, and with each generation we get further and further away from community, and so that's very important. I think that we discuss this.
Yeah. Good morning, Ron. Good morning, everyone. This is GC in Philly.
Hey, George.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Would you hold 1 second, please? Someone else had a question just before
Sure.
Ron.
Yes, I have a statement to make and a question to follow on with the topic that we're discussing. There's an article out there that says Martin Luther King III says regarding the outcome of the 2024 election, Black men should not be blamed for that. And with everything that we're discussing, everything that's happening, my question to you is, did we fail the Black men as a community? And the reason why I bring that up, because I don't know if this issue was really discussed or if it was exposed when Barack Obama was running for president, but he was a Black male. Now that Kamala is here, it's like the infection or pus has come to a head. So that's why I'm asking that question. Thank you.
No, I do not. I don't feel that the Black male that we what word did you use? Fail the Black male. I don't think we fail the Black male any more than we fail the Black woman. I think we failed. We failed as a community when we lost our sense of community. The reason it was not with Obama, because Obama's a man.
Can I ask a question, Pastor? In our community, did we not? We probably did not address the respect that the Black woman deserved in that community. We saw her as a very important part of that, but not the way we see her now. And maybe that's where we dropped the ball. And maybe if we had gained more respect in that regard, community may still be intact. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I agree with that, Ron. We did not acknowledge. We stopped acknowledging, I should say, the respect for Black women. Obama is a man, and the church says that men are supposed to lead. I said this earlier. I want to reiterate it. To say that we're not going to vote for Kamala because you treat us like we are political infants, that is an excuse. It's a poor excuse because men know, especially Black men in church, know beyond the shadow of any doubt that they have been taught to disrespect women. They have not been told in those words to disrespect women, but have been taught to do it. How? By saying that you are the man of the house. You should not let that woman run over you. By saying that I'm the breadwinner, so I should get credit for being the breadwinner. We have been taught that women are supposed to teach the kids in church and men are to teach everyone else. We have been taught that. The positions that we have seen that women are supposed to be in are missionary positions and kitchen positions. That's what we have been taught. And subconsciously or consciously, African men are speaking the way they are in regards to Kamala Harris because of what the white church has taught them. They have been indoctrinated, and this has been instilled in them from day one. And the only way that men, especially African men, will get beyond that is for them to dismiss or to free themselves from the shackles of Christianity/religion. Because as long as the shackles of Christianity is there, they are going to be Paulinians and believe that a woman should learn from her husband. If she have a question, go ask your husband, without even thinking that she may not even have a husband, or her husband may not even care. He may be a drunk, or he may be an addict. He might not just care about anything. So who is she going to ask then? So that when we believe things like that, from the letters that Paul purportedly wrote, if he existed at all. When we believe things like that, that is deep disregard and disrespect for the female, for femininity. So that failure goes both ways. Thank you.
May I ask a
Good morning,
question?
everyone.
Uh,
Whoever was about to speak and go ahead.
no, Regina, George had a statement or question, and then you, okay? And then George. GC,
Yes, sir.
Regina, and George.
Yeah, well, I'll yield because I would like to listen to, the statements of others, and I'll come back and respond if I may.
Sure.
So Regina can go with her question.
I had a question for any one of the teachers. Going back to the passage that Kathy wrote and the examples that you gave, Pastor, of how you grew up, but then also what gender roles we've been assigned, what they shouldn't be. Can someone please speak to the principles of masculinity and femininity as they should show up in community?
Well, Sister wants to speak, I will. Our femininity, how should it show up in communities? When we grew up in a community, femininity was highly respected. And let me give you by example what I'm saying. There was a deep sense in males and females, but males in particular, that caused them to have a respect for femininity or females without even thinking about it, because that's how they grew up. When we talk about their roles, the spiritual space that femininity feels is that of being goddess, and that the being the womb for everything that exists. Masculinity is the seed, and they complement each other. However, this is not about being equal. It's about being balanced. And balance is totally different from equal. Equal means 50-50. Balance means 60-40, whatever it takes to bring that balance. So the way I perceive this to be is that if the earth is ever to have balance, if humanity is ever to have balance within its boundaries, then humanity must recognize how the universe brought everything into existence. And the universe doesn't care whether you respect or disrespect. It is not going to change the principles that it created with. And the principles that it created with was the energy of femininity as being the goddess, the preeminent goddess, God in the earth. And that existed and still does exist. And so that's where we are. That's where we are now in terms of the teachings, our belief systems, and the things that we are attempting to put into macro. It does not diminish masculinity. Masculinity diminishes itself when it does not recognize and respect the strength of femininity and respect the way that the universe has brought things into existence. Does that help you, Regina?
It does.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning. The young lady that asked that question, what's your name again, ma'am?
Regina.
Regina with an R?
Regina with
Yes,
R.
sir.
Okie doke then. Well, Regina, one of the things I want to add to what you stated is one of the things we got to stop doing in the nucleus is when the father calls the wife by way of phone, and he says, "Hey, let me speak to my child right quick," and the mother says, "It's your daddy on the other end of the phone." You know, that takes place in our village, and some people will recognize that. Some people act like, "I don't know what you're talking about, Joe." Yet that is one of the things that can really eat at a black man, that he asks to speak to the child just to give some instruction. And the mother says, "It's your daddy, he won't speak to you." Now, tonality plays a lot in vocabulary. And if that child is being conditioned at a very young age, "Your daddy won't speak to you," and then mama-in-law contributing to it, it can really have an effect on how children or people can see that father. So right now, presently speaking, all of us got a little dirt on us. Now, there are clean people out here, but I ain't never met someone that's squeaky clean now. So in this whole thing of community, when fathers are calling, "Hey, just to speak," mothers or auntie, don't say it's your daddy. Don't do nothing like that.
George,
And
George,
okay,
please.
Reb,
We
I
are
know
not
y'all
talk-
gonna say it.
We're not talking about individual family dynamics. We are talking about the dynamics of humanity. That's what we're talking about. And when it comes to,
And
wait a minute, finish. When
and
it comes to her dragging and saying it's your daddy on the phone, the question is why? And that's one of the things that's one of the things within the social construct of community that we can deal with individually, but collectively, I don't see that. I stand by what I said, that men have been taught to dominate females, period. And if that female does what you are saying, then that is wrong, of course. However, we are talking about how this has an adverse effect, or can have an adverse effect on the continued progress that we are seeking, the continued desire for balance that we are experiencing. So this is far greater than a phone call. This is a way of life that we are talking about. If that woman said, "This your daddy" on the phone, then that's between mom and daddy. If that's said, that is on them. And if Phoebe were to say that to me, "This your daddy" on the phone, honestly, it has no effect on my masculinity or my experience with my children, because I have opportunity to interact with my children when I get with them or when they're on the phone with me. And that, as far as she is concerned, that does not train the child to feel any way about me. My interaction with that child determines how that child feels about me.
Reb, I thank you for the engagement, and I'm just letting people know what can tear down things in humanity. That's all I'm trying to let y'all know. And everyone has a different plate. If the father is a merchant marine and he's out the country a whole lot, he may not have a chance to interact with his children. Everyone has a different plate.
He needs to change jobs.
Okie doke then, Reb. That is, I knew
Come
y'all.
on, George. You know,
that
come on.
same
You
job.
know that any man.
Reb,
Let me
Reb,
finish.
I'm
Let
just
me
letting
finish,
you.
George. I'm not going to debate this with you. If any man allows a job to take precedence over the family that he is supporting, then he needs to find another job, because the job has taken the place of his responsibility of familyhood. A male's responsibility is more than a job. A male's responsibility is to interact with the children also. A girl needs her dad, a boy needs his mama, and the family needs both. So what I am saying is this: if your job that you are on take precedence over your family, you just lost the one that you are supposed to be working for. That's all I'm saying.
Like I said, Reb, I appreciate your engagement. I'm just letting my family know things that can tear down humanity. And in conclusion, I can care if you believe it or you leave it. It don't even matter to me. Yet I will say this: if I see someone do that in my presence, I'm going to say, look, don't do that to the dude. Or vice versa, the female, don't do that to the dude. Don't do that to another individual. It takes place out here. And like I say, I could care less if you believe it or leave it. My goal of it was
That's
to
so
let people
disrespectful.
know.
That's whoa. That's so disrespectful.
Well, Rev,
No. Don't tell me that you don't care whether I believe it or leave it. That's disrespectful. Say it's better to say
and
that.
what I and
It's better to say you can believe it, or if you want to, or my job is to tell you. But to say it the way that you said it, that's disrespectful. And I'm going to begin to point out every single time that someone in this family is being disrespectful to another. And I'm not going to tolerate disrespect, because that's not why we are here. We are here to bring balance to humanity, and we cannot disrespect each other like that.
And Rev, I agree with that. Yet all these people on this here phone, how many of you all agree with Reverend Richard? How many of you all agree with me? I'm just letting you know that in order for humanity to sustain itself, there are certain things that we cannot do. That's all I'm saying. And if you want a community, there are certain things you cannot do in a community. If you want a neighborhood, there are certain things you can do in the neighborhood. That's just my whole point of it, that it takes place out here, Reverend Richard, and children are being influenced based upon someone's degree of tonality. And it takes place. You ain't got to believe me. There's enough licensed family therapists and behavioral analysts out here that will say, hey, Great New Faith Foundation, there's some of what George is saying is correct. That's all my purpose is, to let people know, don't do that to anyone. Thank you very much.
GC, you ready?
Yes. Again, good afternoon, everyone. In what Kathy mentioned with regards to the book of the Spirit of Intimacy, which speaks about ancient African teachings and the ways of relationships. Kathy, when you ended in what you were reading, very significantly, the next statement talked about one of the principles of the Dagara concept of a relationship is that it's not private. And in our opportunity to be able to appreciate spiritual growth, be able to appreciate spiritual connection, and spiritual awareness is all about the community. And in her teachings, it talked about that the relationship is ours, when in fact a community should be claiming ownership. in reference to what we can do to not only empower ourselves, but our relationships in the community. And so, again, when we talk about ownership, I have the opportunity to work with youth who came up with a pledge. And their pledge was simply, this is my community. I am responsible for what happens here, how it looks here, and what I do here. And so, and taking that ownership and claiming that ownership, it helped me to appreciate that, again, the importance of us being able to appreciate the principles, you know what I mean, of the Dagara people. But if we go back and look at it in reference to the principles of Maya, there's a difference between doctrine and laws and principles. And I think that what we are seeking is to appreciate the principles of deity, the first deity, the goddess, and now being able to discern how are we receiving our spiritual enlightenment. And what was said earlier, and a lot has been said, but the one point of emphasis that I will say is that in terms of the Caucasian woman who spoke in reference to her statement of her understanding of femininity, I do concur that Michelle Obama spoke on that same subject in some semblance. And what I came to understand is that she spoke directly to the men in reference to the importance of us being able to appreciate the uniqueness of how wonderful and marvelously we are made. And coming from the birth of a child, she spoke in a very profound way to say that get to know me, get to appreciate what I am giving, to the universe, that we are able to come together to appreciate the oneness that we are as a community, in terms of intimate relationships. So I think that there's something very profound that's being said, by the femininity of what we're experiencing, not only living in the universe, but being of it in that sense that we have an opportunity to truly come together to appreciate the divinity that we are. So I just wanted to, again, share that thought, because I think it's very profound that we're hearing and seeing things not just in the physical, but I think in the spiritual realm that's hopefully having us to embrace not only who we are, but to embrace the community of believers, who have a desire to seek and to know the truth and to speak on those principles of righteousness, harmony, order, and those principles of Maya. So I appreciate you letting me just share those thoughts. But Kathy, I think in the book, it did speak about one of the principles of the Dagara concept is that it's not private. I think we need to appreciate each other and love each other in that way that we can bring harmony to the universe. I'm done. Sorry, we prolonged, but I thank you for letting me share those thoughts.
No problem.
Thank you, George, for adding that, because I didn't know where to stop reading. So thank you for picking that up there. Thank you.
And to support what you both said, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, there's one section in there that I absolutely love. If you get up in the morning and you walk by somebody and they say good morning, and you did not have a good morning, and you seem to have an attitude or something wrong, they want to know why. And they may even go and get the village together, get people together to find out what's wrong. Why didn't you have a good night's rest? Why are you feeling this way? So I love that. It's all about community. And some of it in our eyes seems a bit exaggerated. You know, you go out of your way to support each other that way. But think about it. Treating other people the way you want to be treated. And the way they embrace children in that community is absolutely amazing to me. So I just wanted to add to what Kathy and GC had to say. Thank you.
I have a question. But I know I'll be corrected if I say it wrong. Please correct me. When Jesus told the people that I went to my own and my own received me not. So if he went to his community and his own community didn't receive him. So what happened to that right there? Can you explain what he was trying to say? Anybody can answer it.
Anybody have an answer for Charles' question?
He was saying, when I was in the midst of those who know me best, they rejected me. That's what he was saying. And that is no different than what some of us have experienced from the churches we attended. Even though we were called on to teach or to explain scriptures, we were rejected publicly. Even though we were in the midst of those who really knew that we would not dare teach anything that we did not see in the scriptures. And that type of rejection prevails to this day. It is difficult to get people to see the fallacy, the bondage of religion. It is difficult to get people to see how indoctrinated we have been and how Europeanized our thoughts are. It's difficult to do that. The idea of masculinity is devoid of the presence of femininity in that male. The idea of femininity in that female is not devoid of masculinity in that female, because that female will work alone to take care of the household if she has to. That female will do whatever it takes to make sure that the family is taken care of. And that existed up until hip hop, up until rap. And I'm not talking about all hip hop, all rap. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when we lost control of our music. That's when everything went downhill with the hell in a handbasket, to the extent that females are not responsible to the family as they once were. And I'm talking about the younger ones. Males are baby makers and proud of how many different baby mamas they have, as opposed to being a positive influence by virtue of taking care of those that they have brought into this earth through their seed. And that, when you talk like that, those who know you are the ones who reject you. And the rejection is not because they think you're wrong. The rejection is because they don't want to face the truth. I'm done.
I can receive that. I thank you, Pastor.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Any questions or comments, y'all, on anything we've discussed? Well, I certainly hope it has made sense. Someone about to speak?
I was just going to add one quick comment, not
Yes, ma'am.
not speaking to the music aspect, but to what Pastor said about religion. Based on what he just said, then it's clear that religion has been the main culprit in destroying our sense of community. Even with what we started with the discussion with today about how the Black ministers are saying all the things that they're saying, religion continues to divide the community. And I think it's very powerful that we are addressing community and our eye is open to what's going on and what we're putting in the macro to change all of this, because those ministers that are speaking out wholeheartedly believe what they believe, even if it's not the right thing to believe. And so the only way they will see something differently and have come to a different understanding of what's being done is that their eye has to be open to this, and their spiritual ears have to be open, spiritual ear has to be open as well. And so I think that by the mere fact that we are having this conversation in the sense of community, it's time to bring the whole community together. And that's what we are doing today. And even though we may be looking at different aspects of this is how I see it as an individual, at the end of the day, like George said earlier, it's not private, it's not just a personal individual journey, it's a collective journey. And we have to open our minds and broaden our horizons, so to speak, beyond just what I see in my quote unquote community in which I live, or the community that is the community of my immediate family in my home, but go beyond that to see the global sense of community and the spiritual aspects of that, to make lasting, permanent changes so that we can exist as the spiritual community that we were purposed to be from the beginning. And I've enjoyed this conversation today because I am really embracing, as I read this book and walking more in this understanding of community, because I just see it, I guess, more clearly than I've ever seen it before. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to say that in closing today. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank y'all. I will say this: if we're gonna have a community, you cannot have a community when the energy is based on collective bias. This is how neighborhoods exist, on collective bias. So if we're gonna have a community, and I do think we have a community with my spiritual-minded family, yet no community can exist on collective bias. When you look at bias from a noun standpoint, it's kind of harmless. Yet if you look at bias or collective bias from a verb standpoint, there's a degree of prejudice. So neighborhoods exist behind collective bias. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions or comments?
I want to
think our
reiterate one
foundation is
final
just
point,
truth.
Ron. Oh, go ahead, Ed.
I was just, community is not really, a reality. We exist on truth and connection, and that's supposed to be so much bigger than anything else. I mean, our connection is our connection, but the foundation of that is just truth and who we are and who we are.
So you don't believe that connection makes us a community? Is that what you're saying, Ed?
No, I
Because
think that connection is just bigger
in
than
the
the
book.
community. Yeah, I think the connection is just it's more the solidarity, the oneness, the connection is, well, you can call it a community if you choose to, but I think it's just bigger than that, because if you've got people on this call that are in Mexico, that are in California, different parts of the country, and I don't think that when I hear community, I think of a barrier or lines being drawn, and I think it transcends that. I think the connection is just bigger. We're connecting with people, across the world, and I think tapping into that, you have to tap into that based on a common truth and belief and acknowledgement of that connection. And so when I hear I think it's bigger than that. But
And I think we're saying the same thing, because it starts by saying community is spirit and the guiding light.
Yes.
And if we get bogged down in neighborhood, that's what I've been saying the whole time. It's not about a physical place. This is the inward spiritual journey that you're on, and they call it community. And I don't want us to get bogged down in thinking we're talking about the neighborhood. I live in Spartanburg now. My community was once Gaffney. I grew up in Gaffney. Now I'm living in Spartanburg. I'm not talking about that community. I'm not talking about physically where I am, this body is. I'm talking about the connection spiritually throughout the universe. That's why we put things in the macro. That's that spiritual community. And so I don't want us to get bogged down. And I know we spend a lot of time trying to justify households and what goes on. That's not what I am talking about. I'm talking about what you're talking about. It's bigger than just a community in which I'm living in. And I think what we're getting mixed up right now is a physical neighborhood versus a spiritual community that we are building, that we exist in. And that's why I don't want to leave the last word with not being something spiritual, to understand we're talking about bigger than a neighborhood. We're talking about a spiritual existence in a spiritual community where we draw strength from each other, where we draw wisdom from each other, and where we collectively move together, even without having to communicate verbally with one another. And so I really want to drive that point home, that we're not talking about your physical neighborhood or your physical household. We're talking about a spiritual community. Thank you.
yes, no, definitely. That's what I wanted to kind of reiterate. That I know George had made his last comment, but it's just, it's not anything physical, any lines drawn. It's exactly what you said. It's just we're connected.
Yeah. And also, ST and Kathy and everyone, I think this is the importance, again, when we, talk about principles, in terms of our spiritual, enlightenment or growth. And if we can, go back and look at, the Kemetic teachings in terms of, the principles of Ma'at, I think that's, the foundation in terms of us being able to appreciate the oneness when we talk about, community in that sense of our spiritual enlightenment, if that resonates with you all. I'm done.
It does. Thank you, George. Thank you, Captain S. I think that needed to be said. This is all spiritual, and it includes in and everybody. That's our community. Yes. Anything else to grab our attention before we go?
Ron, good morning, family. This is Evelyn. I didn't want to say anything. I was going to sit back and listen to everybody. Everything that's been said, teachers, and I'm not just going to name one, but teachers and pastor. You have to remember why we are connecting on this phone, on Zoom. We're here to learn who we are and how we can help mankind advance to where we need to be. Again, I'm going to say it again. It's not about anyone's opinion. You can bring it, but we are here to agree and disagree sometimes. We have to have respect for each other. I don't care who that individual is or are. We need respect. And if you're on this phone and you're not trying to learn who you are, I think you need to move on somewhere else where you can learn who you are. But what we do is very important, and it's crucial to mankind that we do the right thing to bring balance to humanity. Now, if I said something to offend anyone, truth hurts, okay? But if you're on this phone to learn anything, learn who you are. It's not about arguing. It's not about being defensive. We are on this phone to learn who we are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Are you still? Okay.
I don't know what happened, but all I'm saying in a nutshell, we're supposed to respect each other, the divinity that we are. And it's okay to have a disagreement. If you don't agree with someone, we all supposed to be adults on this phone. So again, our main thing here is to learn who we are and to bring balance to humanity. If you're on this phone for something else or on Zoom, you may need to bow out gracefully because we have a mission. We are on a mission. And that's all I want to say today. We love each other. We are a community. It's time out for all the bull. And I'm saying that, and I'm standing on it. It's time out for all the stuff. You get that out on the street, okay? We're here to learn and to know who we are. That's all I'm going to say today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, though, then, well, to the group, if you're going to learn, I need someone to show me how to disagree with someone. Because when people disagree with me, I don't see that as a sign of disrespect. So anybody want to hold my hand to show me how to disagree with someone, I would greatly appreciate it. And like I say, when people disagree with me, I don't see that as a sign of disrespect. So whoever want to hold my hand and show me, because if you're going to learn, questions got to be raised. And it is more so a form of disrespect that when someone says something that you may not know to be accurate and you don't say nothing. That's a degree of collective bias that can really harm humanity. So if anyone want to show me how to disagree, because that's an area that I probably do need to work in or work on, how to disagree with people. And I think one way to disagree with people, George, just keep your mouth shut sometimes. So if anyone wants to show me the correct way in disagreeing with someone, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Disrespect is not about disagreeing. Disrespect is about tonality. I'm done.
Repeat what you just said, Ray.
Disrespect is not about disagreeing. Disrespect is about tonality, how you say something.
Thank you. Okay. At the outset, I said to you guys, if you didn't have if you had any questions, and they weren't urgent to you, to hold them until the end, and might be a good place to take a pause. Or if I can ask you, please, to hold your questions until tomorrow, and we will begin there. Is that okay? You guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yes.
we will begin there tomorrow. I appreciate your energy. The energy of and desire for righteousness and truth prevails anything. I appreciate your energy. Okay? Have a great day. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, family.